Hello and welcome to the No Huddle Podcast. As you can clearly tell, it's a little bit different of a recording place this time. Not in the dorm. This time we are back home. For loyal listeners of the show, more likely just my friends and family, I think you guys will recognize this as the home of episode 1 and the only episode we ever did in my childhood bedroom. And we're back because it's Thanksgiving, which Thanksgiving in winter, by the way, as a football fan, got to be the best time of year. You're at home, you can relax, you're spending time with the family, holidays, and not to mention you get so much football. I'm recording this Tuesday night. Pretty soon we got Thursday, Thanksgiving games. All of them are great, by the way. That's going to be so much fun. We got the Black Friday game. We got college football rivalry week coming up on Saturday. And then Sunday, of course, we have even more football. So the best time of the year to be a football fan. But with that being said, let's get into it. We have a lot of stuff to talk about when it comes to Week 12. And let's kick it off with my Niners. I was at the game, Panthers and Niners. And let's just say we have a good bit here. So let's start off with the offense and what everyone's been talking about when it comes to this game, and that is Brock Purdy's 3 interceptions. But before we get to that, the Niners win 20-9. And honestly, it was a really huge game. I feel like that's gotten lost in all of it. The Niners moved to 8-4 this game. Carolina, with a win, would have taken first place in their division by a full game. This was an absolutely massive game. So, as important, of course, as it is to talk about the interceptions and stuff, I think a lot of people have lost focus on just how big this game was. For the Niners, Brock Purdy goes 193 yards, a touchdown, 3 interceptions. CMC goes for 24 carries, 89 yards. Had about $150 total with the receiving yards. He now leads the league in receptions. And on the Panthers side of it, Bryce Young goes for 170 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, a rough game out of him. Rico Dowdle only gets 6 carries in this game. A whole mess here. And let's start with the Brock Purdy interceptions. So I'm just going to go through them one by one. So the first one was a deep in breaker to Juwan. If you look back on film, he threw that one late he threw it late and he threw it inaccurately. A rough ball, frankly, not one that we're used to seeing Brock throw. It was just inaccurate. He missed him. He was just right behind him. I don't understand necessarily what went wrong there. If Juwan had a step on him, and granted it's J.C. Horn, so maybe I would love to see Brock be like, okay, it's J.C. Horn. Let's not try and fit in a tight window ball. But it's just behind Juwan and ends up being a pick. That one was not great. Second one, by far, in my opinion, his worst throw of the day. 3rd and 6, absolutely massive play in the game. He steps up, tries to climb the pocket, and he absolutely has it. If he just takes off and runs, he has a first down. Not only that, if he wants to pull it down and check it down to George Kittle, he also has a first down. Probably more. I'd say George Kittle, with his ability after the catch, probably ends up with a touchdown himself. But instead, he goes deep to Ricky, who admittedly is open, who has about a step on his guy, and he just misses him. He sees it late, and he throws it behind him, really behind. And it turns what should be a pretty easy touchdown to Ricky if he can just lead it out in front right there. Bang. Love to see it. Instead, it's a rough throw. It's the one play, the 2 places it couldn't be was behind him and underthrown. That's exactly what it was. So it allows the Panthers DB to catch up and get an interception. And the third one, I'm just going to give a ton of credit to J.C. Horn. He was the backside corner on that play on the left side. He realizes that he has no assignment. He's basically a free man. And he charges all the way to the right side of the field, sees Ricky Pearsall starting to cross, and makes a phenomenal play. J.C. Horn is just that type of guy who's going to make a bunch of plays like that over the course of the season. And he had an amazing game before he went out with a concussion. So 2 brutal misfires by Brock, and one just not great play by J.C. Horn. Reason why I felt like I had to go through him step by step is because I came on here last week when the Niners beat the Cardinals and Brock came back and we put up 41 points. And I gave him a ton of love. I gave him his flowers. So it only feels right for me to address it when he plays poorly, because I can't just, be like, oh, look at all the great stuff he does, and not actually address it when he messes up, because frankly, this was not his greatest game. I like him rebounding, though, with a nice rebound, like a really nice rip to Kittle in the open zone. Carolina gave him that spot, so that was a really nice read by him. But for the second half, you could tell either Shanahan was shaken by it, either Purdy was shaken, because they did not try to go deep at all. Frankly, it was just a lot of simple checkdowns, just slowly move that ball down the field. And credit to Brock and that offense, because they did end up getting one more touchdown and another field goal, which was all they would need to win this one. A very uncharacteristic game by Brock. Usually you don't see him, for one, make inaccurate throws. Whenever Brock has an interception, it's because he either read some zone defender wrong, because so much of what Brock does is big anticipation and big accuracy. That's what that's what he has, because he doesn't have the strongest arm. He can't really rip it like a lot of the other quarterbacks in the league can. He doesn't have, of course, like, he's not Josh Allen, he's not Lamar Jackson, he's not Patrick Mahomes. So the way he makes up for it is with perfect accuracy and insane anticipation. And again, I'm just going to ignore that third interception because that was just an amazing play by J.C. Horn. I don't know what else there is to say. But for the first two, not only was he late, but he was so inaccurate, which is just so uncharacteristic of Brock. So uncharacteristic, in fact, and this might get me a lot of hate, that I am willing to just say, like, I'm willing to chalk it up to a bad game. So, and don't get me wrong, I understand. There's a lot of people that text me, that DM me whenever Brock has a bad game because I'm so ardent on this stance. If that was like Brock just is misreading defenders, if there's something wrong clearly with the toe, like in the Jacksonville game where he had 2 interceptions in that one, you could tell he just wasn't stepping in and throwing the ball well. So the ball floated, and it was like, okay, yeah, very clearly something's wrong. He's injured and he needs to be out of the game. And yeah, he went on to miss 2.5 months. So I'm willing to just say, like, it's a rough game out of Brock, clearly shaking off a little bit of rust. But these are all fixable issues. And it's issues that he has not had for 25 games out of his career. I don't know how many games he's played, which is, frankly, he hasn't played that many, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like, it's something where it will be better over the course of the year. It's not time to put in Mac Jones or anything crazy like that. It's not, time to insanely overreact. If he has another bad game against Cleveland where he's just missing guys, then yeah, I think it'd be time to have a little bit of a conversation. But until he puts up consistently bad performances, I'm not willing to throw away 30 to 35 consistently good performances. And I know when Brock struggles, this is going to be a larger critique of the media. When Brock struggles, everyone is so quick to point out and be like, "Oh, look, I was right. He's a system guy, quarterback, yada yada yada." But they just ignore the consistently 10 to 15 great games he puts in a year. So, like, for example, his MVP year where he was the front runner for MVP 16 weeks through the year. The offense is looking phenomenal all year, and then he played Baltimore on Christmas Day, and Brock gets crucified by the media in that game. And he didn't have a great game at all. He threw 4 interceptions. It was rough. But the amount of people that were jumping to be like, "Oh, look, I was right all along. I was right. He's a system quarterback. He's this, he's this, he's this." Is insane to me. And it's the same stuff that's happening again with this one, which is weird to me because the team still won. It's weird to see him just get absolutely crushed in the media for one bad performance. I don't know. We see it, so many other quarterbacks, frankly, have bad games, and we're willing to chalk it up to bad games because they are uncharacteristic of how they have played throughout the entire year. But we don't give that same grace to Brock Purdy. It's really frustrating to me. I think it's one of those things where if you're a late draft pick, you just have to prove yourself over and over and over and over again and be willing to get dunked on by the media. So that's exactly what he's going to do. Even though the Niners struggle in Cleveland after this rough performance against Carolina, I think he bounces back. And I think I think the Niners are going to be 10-4, but that's a separate argument. Anyways, let's move off of Brock because I could talk about Brock and all that stuff all day. So CMC, absolute beast. He is on pace for 422 touches this season. For reference, Saquon had 450 throughout the course of the entire last season, including the postseason, with 4 playoff games, with the Rams and the Commanders games being games where he dominated and took 30 carries. So that pace is historic. It is by far unprecedented. He leads the league in receptions with 81 over Puka Nacua, JSN. Unbelievable stuff out of CMC. And am I a little concerned about just how much they're using him? Yeah, but I think something that's important to know is he's not taking too many big hits. It feels like the way CMC is falling this year and getting hit is very different. Like, it seems sustainable, so that you love to see. I would love to get some more Brian Robinson carries in there, just take some of the workload off. But I understand how important it is to have CMC in the game, just for a schematic reason. Trying to make life as hard for the defense as possible. So, but the reason overall why I'm so excited about this game, and why I'm so much more higher on the Niners after this game than I was heading in, because the things that I was really worried about with this Niners team, because I wasn't worried about Brock. I wasn't worried about CMC. I wasn't worried about any of that. My main things I was concerned about heading in was that offensive line's rough. And what do they do today? Or not today, yesterday. What did they do yesterday? They have an amazing game. Dominic Pooney, who struggled at the start of the year, is playing like his old self last year, just playing like a Pro Bowler again consistently for the last month. Colton McKivitz, who the team re-signed, has looked awesome, even though he does struggle against really, really good edge rushers, and we're going to see that in Myles Garrett next week. We seem to have figured out that left guard spot with Burford and Barch rotating. And, of course, Trent Williams is one of the best tackles of all time, and he continues to just be that. At 37, he's still so good. Most plays you cannot tell he is 37, which is unbelievable. He has been awesome. Awesome. And, of course, Ricky Pearsall, not the greatest game out of him. If I was a betting man, which I'm not anymore, I've given that up. But if I was, I would have said bet on Ricky this game, and that would have been horrendously wrong. Just because, frankly, we didn't rip the ball in the second half very deep at all. And I think it's inevitable he'll pop back up. But for any Niners fans concerned about Ricky, I think it's inevitable. Just give it time. So, moving on to the Niners defense. Number 27, Jair Brown. Have yourself a freaking day. His best game as a Niner by far. 2 interceptions, 5 tackles, and even if you were to throw away the interceptions, I would say the best game of his career, because he was in the right spot at the right time. He was doing everything correct. Again, the things that I were the most worried about for the Niners team heading into this game played awesome, which was insanely surprising to me. Like, the interior offensive line playing a great game against Derek Brown and Ashawn Robinson, not what I got on my bingo card. And then Jair Brown, in my opinion, someone who should have been benched 2 months ago, putting up an insane game and looking like finally the guy that we drafted, was unbelievable. He was so good. Again, in the right place at the right time, always. And of those 2 interceptions, that first one was so clutch. Completely baited Bryce. Had him thinking he was going one way. Then he started pedaling back. Oh my God, that's a beautiful thing to see. And that second interception, he just drove on it, a Teratoa McMillan inbreaker. That was awesome as well. And when the Niners defense can get good safety play, it's like you forget about all the injuries that the team has suffered, because bad safety plays was hampering this team. It was brutal. But just getting medium to even good safety play, which was what we got this last game, and all of a sudden it's like, here comes the Niners defense. Even with all the injuries, you allowed 9 points, even when they have 3 takeaways. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. The pass rush is still a hot mess, I'm not going to lie. And that's just frankly not going to get much better throughout the whole year. But the coverage on the back end was holding up, which was allowing some pressure, which was great. And the big thing is they didn't get run on all game, which we're going to talk about that when we get to Carolina. They were able to hold up against the run game. But overall, this game was such a huge win for the team. And I think, like I mentioned before, it has gotten clouded by the Purdy discourse. If you are a Niners fan and you're coming out of the game and the main thing you're thinking about is, oh, Brock, I'm worried about Brock. I think that's a natural reaction. I just want you to refocus and be like, okay, the biggest problems with this team, we were concerned about that interior offensive line. They had a hell of a test, and they freaking won it. And that defense, with how bad certain players have been playing on that defense and how much of a liability has looked. In fact, the Cardinals got the record for the most completions in a single game against this defense, and the Rams went 42. But that was not the same defense that came out in those last 2 weeks as the one we saw today. They were amazing. I don't know why I keep saying today. Yesterday. They were amazing. It was so freaking nice to see. So, amazing safety play. Curtis Robinson stepped up too as the third linebacker because Fred and Tatum Bethune are injured. That was great. And overall, no one wants to see the San Francisco team come to the postseason. It's so funny because I saw a segment, Nick Wright who is this analyst, he was, of course, giving a lot of crap towards Brock. But then even he had to acknowledge at the end of it, like, yeah, you don't want to play San Francisco right now. The way you have amazing coaching, you have blue chip players, that can lead to success come the postseason. Moving on to the Carolina side of it. That was fun to do an A-block on my team. It's been a while. Moving on to the Panther side. I just have, Jesus, this team sucks. Their record was really good heading in. They were over 500. Like I said, they were with a win. They would have been a full game up in their division. It was a prime opportunity for them, especially coming off the Atlanta game where Bryce Young in that offense put up 450 yards passing. And what do? They fall apart because they have talent on that roster. But it's just, I said that I have written here, it's annoying that they suck because they definitely have an option not to, yet they seem to choose the option that does. Bryce, a hot mess today, or yesterday. He was under a bit of pressure. Like I said, a lot of receivers were just covered. It was good defense on the back end. But he clearly had a rough game that not choosing to bail and try and run for the end zone on that first interception and instead trying to fit it into and not seeing Jair Brown. Oh, this is such a mess there. And he had 500 yards last week. There's the amount of memes I've seen of like, look, Bryce, they're in red. They're the Falcons. Just beat them. But I don't know. This guy is just against the Falcons. He's gone. Against everyone else, it's a mess. There was such a good chance here for positive momentum. If the Panthers had been 7-5, beat the Falcons, get momentum there, get some defensive momentum and a win over the Niners, I feel like we'd be in such a different spot. But right now, everyone's just like, oh, whatever. They're a cute team. It's Carolina. Whatever. They're going to eventually fall apart. And they did, which was rough. The biggest mistake I felt like they made was just not running the ball. They were in a situation where the first half they had all. Why I'm having a hard time phrasing this. They could have control over the game, right? Because the other team gave you the ball 3 straight times, and yet it felt like the Niners had the ball the entire game, which felt so weird. If they could just run the ball, the Niners defense has allowed the run to work really well. I want to say they've had like the 28th rushing defense in the league, so you can run the ball in the Niners. But for Rico Dowdle to get 6 carries, for Chuba to get 3, I just don't understand what the game plan was. They felt like so insistent on Bryce throwing the ball, and there was just no reason for him to. It was a really, really rough game plan. I want to say it was one of Canales' worst as the Panthers head coach, which is saying something because this team has suffered some insanely brutal losses. But just the frustration of this game because the Panthers had every opportunity here, and for them to seize literally none of them was brutal. 3 points off of 3 takeaways is an easy way to just piss the hell out of your fan base. That's a mess. Like I said, their defense has talent, and they played a good game. J.C. Horn's an amazing corner. My God, J.C. Horn is so good. I knew he was good heading into the game. I did not realize just how much of a freaking instinct that guy had for the ball. Derek Brown's so good. They have A'Shawn Robinson, who I really love. He, like 4 years ago when he was with the Rams, he shut down the Niners' run game pretty much single-handedly. They have good secondary players. Like, there is talent on this freaking team. But it just seems like it never seems to work out. It's, hopefully they can get their stuff together because if you look at the rest of their schedule, our game might have been the easiest they have for a little while. I'm going to pull it up here. Like, the Panthers' schedule, there's a reason why no one thinks they're actually going to make the playoffs, besides the fact, of course, that they looked really rough against us, because they have the Rams now without Trayvon Moehrig because he punched Jawan Jennings in the dick. We're going to talk about that in a sec. They have the Saints, Bucks, Seahawks, Bucks. You got one game off against the Saints, and other than that, you're going to be fighting to the death. The good news for them is that they do have those 2 games against the Buccaneers, so if they can somehow pull off a win against either the Rams or the Seahawks, handle business against the Saints, which they've already lost 2 once, if they can just beat the Bucks twice, they could be in a spot to actually win the division, which is crazy. Anyways, last thing I want to talk about when it comes to this game, Jawan Jennings and Trayvon Moehrig got into a really, really weird incident. So it was the last play of the game, and Trayvon Moehrig, for some reason, I know Jawan Jennings has been pissing them off the whole game because Jawan had a very, very good game, which when Jawan has a good game, that means he's blocking insanely well. He's just making defenders look small, which, pisses the hell out of them or pisses them off like crazy. So at the end of the game, Trayvon Moehrig just takes a cheap shot right to Jawan's nuts. I saw Rich Eisens call it Jawan's Jennings. And I was like, what on earth? They showed the replay in Levi's. All the fans, like the freaking half of them that were even left because the game was over, they're just like, oh my God, are you kidding? It was unbelievable to see. And then, of course, right as the game ends, Jawan immediately goes up to him and like throws an open-handed punch on him. It was such a mess. We know the results of it now. Jawan Jennings did not get any suspension. I'm not sure if he even got fined because he got punched in the freaking nuts. And Trayvon Moehrig got suspended. In my opinion, one of the better safeties in the entire league. He is such a talented player. And he completely botched it because he's now going to be out for that Rams game, which is brutal for them. if you want to talk about a game they are like a little chance in, it almost goes to no chance now. Because you don't have anyone protecting the skies against Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who we're going to talk about near the end of this pod. Oh, my God. All right, moving on. We've got the Eagles and the Cowboys. What an interesting game this was. The Eagles started up 21-0 in the first 20 minutes, and then proceeded to slowly blow that lead. The Eagles' offense continues to make me want to projectile vomit. Yeah, pretty accurate. I just don't get it. It's I've had to talk about Philly once every 2 to 3 weeks because they're the defending Super Bowl champs. So of course they naturally are going to get a lot of airtime here, but it's just I don't know what else there is to say. The Eagles' run game is broken. I posted that a month ago. That is still accurate. They had 10 carries for 22 yards, and not to mention Saquon fumbled. The run game is dead. The offensive line is just not blocking the same way it used to, which is weird because Saquon is still a hell of a running back, even if he has taken even a minor step back, which I think I'd argue is taking a bit more. But even a step back for Saquon is still a really good freaking running back. And then their Eagles offensive line, which is, again, taking a step back, but that still is a very good offensive line. You still have, I know Cam Jurgens, I think he was coming back from injury for this game. So Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, you still have Jordan Mailata. I know Lane Johnson's out with injury. That offensive line is still very good. And for them to just to seem like lost is beyond me in the run game. And of course, in the pass game, they're phenomenal. Like Jalen Hurts has so much time, but when it comes time to just run the ball, it's a freaking mess. And this issue of them not just like committing to the run game at some point earlier in the year, just to try and fix it, work out the kinks. But it's starting to cost them because now they're actually getting into really important games. Like this game was for just clinching the division. They could have won their division by late November, which is unheard of. Like not again, technically not mathematically win it, but whatever. For all intents and purposes, they would have won their division had they just won this game today or on Sunday. A freaking mess by them. Jalen Hurts, I said that he played one of his better games, which is accurate, but again, it is the Cowboys defense, and it is frustrating that he could have 100%. He had the ball so many times in that game with a chance to get some points on the board, and for him to come up empty over and over and over again was so frustrating. There was a lot of reports coming out earlier in the week about how some of the members of the Eagles front office and coaching staff or whatever were frustrated with Jalen Hurts just being so conservative, checking the ball down a lot. Because if you look, his touchdown interception ratio is crazy because he doesn't really take many shots. Like he either has the deep ball like left side or right side to either A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith when they have a step on him, or he just checks it down. He doesn't ever push the middle of the field. He doesn't push anything from 5 to 20 yards, which is so weird. It's either just huck it deep or check down over and over and over again, which, defenses have gotten more and more accustomed to, and even the Cowboys got more accustomed to it throughout the game, and that's why they were able to shut it down. I don't know how much of it to blame on Jalen Hurts. I don't know how much to blame on Patullo. All I know is that there is a lot of blame there, and someone needs to get at least some part of it. Again, Patullo, fucking... I am so annoyed. I feel like I can make a rant on Patullo every week, and every week I'm proven right. How they didn't fire him 5 weeks into the year is beyond me. When it was clear that something was wrong. Nick Sirianni and his hires at coordinators, I was having a conversation with my brother about this. So when he hires in-house, it's been a mess. You take it back 2 years ago. They hired Sean Desai as their DC, who was in-house, and that was horrible. He got fired by week 14. And they hired instead Matt Patricia to come in, which just made things worse. And their OC was bad that year. So then next year, Nick Sirianni goes outside of the building. I don't even know who handled the hires. It could have been Howie. God knows. And then it's Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Again, out-of-house hires, and they're phenomenal. Kellen Moore with this offense was great. Vic Fangio with how much talent was on the defense was amazing. Right? And then we come back next year, and Sirianni again goes in-house with the offensive coordinator, and it's a freaking mess again. So when people give a ton of credit to Nick Sirianni, right, and then, I will counter back and say he has some of the best coordinators in the league, or he did last year with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, and they say, well, he hired them. Well, then I can go back and say, well, look at who he's hired in-house. Who is he promoted? Because he's actively hurting this team with some of these promotions. There is no reason for Kevin Patullo to be an offensive coordinator right now. He is awful. God awful. when I tell you, I think a middle schooler could run that offense, could call a better offense. I kind of believe it. Like, it's not even just a joke anymore. It's not a bit. It's that bad. Because it's just the same vanilla shit over and over and over again. I hate it so much. And again, that doesn't mean Kevin Toole is 100% the reason for this. And it doesn't mean that if you fire him, their offense is perfect again. No. There's definitely a lot of blame to be assigned here. But I think a large portion of it needs to go to Patullo, and I think a portion of it needs to go to Jalen Hurts. Even if, again, he had a very good statistical game this game, it was just frustrating to watch. I have that on here. It's just a little fun note. I said, Brock pushes the ball down way too much, and he keeps trying to be a gunslinger, and Jalen Hurts keeps checking it down too much. If they just go in the middle here, they would create a really, really good quarterback. They would have like a perfect mentality quarterback. As for their defense, like they held up for a while there. They took a lot of blows. Of course, they were able to do enough to get their team up 21-0. But sorry, after that, they allowed the Cowboys to come back in the game, which is frustrating. But the Cowboys got the ball on the Eagles' side, inside the 10, and they held them to 0 freaking points. Not only that, the Eagles' offense, again, after crapping out and doing nothing, they got the ball back to Dallas with 5 minutes left, and they shut them out again. And they gave the ball back to the Eagles again, who again did nothing. So, even if, like, yes, the defense allowing them back in the game is pretty brutal, they did more than enough to win. They made so many clutch stops. And, of course, at the end, they were going to fall apart. Just how many chances Dallas had at it, it was inevitable. And all they needed was a field goal when you have freaking Brandon Aubrey. Yeah, they were going to fall apart. So, I don't think this is much of an indictment on the Eagles defense, even though it is uncharacteristic because the last few weeks they've been freaking amazing. They allowed the Packers to 10 points, the Lions to 9. So I think seeing some misstep is a little weird here, especially because how good they've been after trading for Jalen Phillips. But when the other team's offense gets so many freaking chances at it, it's inevitable the dam is going to break, especially with the way Vic Fangio calls coverages. It will break at some point. So on the Dallas side of it, because I could come on here and rant about the Eagles for 10 minutes a week, every week, and it's not going to change anything, and it's still going to be the exact same, and it will bite them in the postseason, unless Kevin Patullo magically grows a brain. So, for Dallas, I just have, okay, we see you. That Dallas defense post-trade deadline, that's so nice to talk about some positives. Quinton Williams, of course, has been an amazing ad. He's been awesome. I feel like every year people forget the value of interior defensive line threats. Because, of course, Chris Jones has been the anchor of the Chiefs' dynasty on the defense side of the ball, and he's come up clutch so many times. Aaron Donald, of course, one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and what he did on the interior was so hard to guard. But yeah, interior pass rush, man, it's huge. And when you have a guy like Quinn who can pretty consistently get it, man, it just makes things so much easier. And it's so hard to scheme up on the offense side of the ball. If it's like a generational edge rusher, you can throw a tackle, you can chip at him. But when it's a guy in the interior, you got to double him and pray. There's not much else you can do. So, anyways, besides that, getting Demarion Overshown back from injury. I'm shocked, by the way, he came back this fast. He had a really, really nasty injury. So seeing him not only come back, but be a positive right away is so cool. He's such a fun player. If you've never heard of him, Google some of his highlights, either in Texas or on Dallas. He's been so much fun. But not only that, they had another corner. I want to say it's Siobhan Ravel off of injury. And, their whole team's gotten better. Of course, there was the tragic passing of Marshawn Nealand, which has seen, and the team has really sort of rallied around that. Which that, by the way, that's been a really wholesome thing to see. I think the Cowboys have done a great job honoring him. After he's passed, they had their first home game and they had a big thing for Nealand. So hopefully all the players are doing okay. After seeing a player pass away, that's insane. I don't even know how you cope with that and keep playing football afterwards, but credit to them for doing so, and it seems like they've really rallied around it. Anyways, we got fully off track here. Sorry for bringing that up even. But the way this Dallas defense has played this past the trade deadline, has been truly, it's been like impressive just because, again, all they needed was mediocre. I said the same thing when I was talking about Dallas at the beginning of the year. I said the same thing when I was talking about Houston at the beginning of the year. If Houston's offense can become mediocre, they're going to be a really good football team. If Dallas's defense can become mediocre, they're going to be a really good football team. And again, what do you see? Dallas's defense allows 21 points. More than enough to win the game because of how talented that offense is. Even when you're playing against that insanely talented Philadelphia Eagles defense, it's enough to win the game. So I'm so excited to see this team play against Kansas City. On the offensive side of the ball, man, George Pickens is so good. He is going to be on the thumbnail of this podcast. He's so awesome. I love watching George Pickens just to go do his thing. He seems like such a perfect fit in Dallas. I don't think they're going to be able to extend him because, of course, they're already paying CeeDee Lamb a ton of money. But Pickens in Dallas is such a fun fit. Dak Prescott played a great game, even though he did have that early interception, which was not great. CeeDee Lamb, by the way, something's wrong with him when he plays Philly. Either he has Eagles money line in every game or he makes some sort of handshake deal because that man has no hands against Philly, and he definitely going to cost them the game if the Eagles offense give them so many chances. Like, yikes, that was bad. I don't know what the hell what gets into CD during these games. He's very much been relegated to the receiver 2 for this core, which is insane, by the way. That's a testament to how well Pickens is playing. One quick thing I want to shout out before I move on here. Seeing that Cowboys special teamer, I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry about that. But he got shoved, battered, bruised, punched, everything on that one play where he's the gunner. That poor guy got hit maybe 5 times and got up every single time. And what does he do? He keeps running and he freaking hit sticks the punt returner and forces the fumble. That was so awesome. That was like, I watched the play and I was like, that's the embodiment of football. I love that. I love that shit so much. Man, that special teams coordinator is going to be amped to see that shit. All right, moving on. We've got the Bucks and the Rams. So, main reason I want to talk about this game, final score of this game was like 14-34. Or no, it wasn't even 14-34. The Bucks ended up getting destroyed in this game. But it's a good testament to see where both of these teams are at. Because if you remember, the Bucks at the beginning of the year were really freaking good. They were 4-1. Baker Mayfield was the MVP. And this game, it got brutal right away. It was 20-0, just like that. And the Rams are not the Eagles. They're not blowing that lead. They held that shit all the way through and even added to it. And for the Bucks, I mean, it was brutal. Baker Mayfield got very fortunate to only have like a minor shoulder injury or no major structural damage because it looked bad. Like when they put him back in for that Hail Mary at the end. Certainly an interesting call. It was rough. And that whole Tampa team, it's a combination of being decimated by injuries, returning to form. But whenever Baker was there, he wasn't playing great past the Niners game. Like that Lions game really was a shift for this whole Buccaneers team, and it has not looked good ever since. They can't stop the run anymore. Obviously, their pass defense is getting torched. Like this Tampa team is just, frankly, it's been bad the last few weeks, which is kind of crazy to say. I love this Tampa team. In my first week tiers, they were like my second best team in the league because of how well they were playing and how well they were coached. And it seems like all that's just kind of gone out the window. We knew heading into the stretch, they were 6-2. And it was like they have 3 difficult games. They had like the Rams, they had the Bills, and it was like, okay, you got to prove yourself, right? Win even one of these games. And for them to come out with all of them with no wins and come out battered and bruised, it's unfortunate to see because when Baker MVP Tampa was so much fun, and it's become to be such a mess. Hopefully, it gets a bit better. Bucky Irving will be back next week. Mike Evans will be back towards the end of the year, so that hopefully should pick up the offense. Maybe Baker is. I hope they give him the week off. I think he just needs some time. Clearly, he's got not only just his shoulders, some other stuff that's bothering him. Gives that line some more time to heal. And for the defense, man, they got to get their shit together. Like, this is a Todd Bowles coach unit. You got it. And there's talent. There's so much talent on that defense side of the ball. You just got to get your shit together, man. And on the other side of it, for the Rams, my God, they look so good. In the year where the NFC seems so wide open, it really does feel like it's the Rams to lose. Because the way Stafford's playing, he's by far the MVP right now. I know just a few weeks ago I talked about how I thought Jonathan Taylor was the MVP, but with the Colts really struggling in that Kansas City game towards the end there, and how dominant Stafford's looked, I think right now he has to be the MVP. He is so freaking good right now. And by the way, that combination of Puka and Devontae Adams, oh my God, how do you guard that? I have no clue. Because they had Puka and Cooper Kupp, and of course, when Cooper Kupp was really good, that's a great duo. But the problem is they kind of do the same thing, right? You have Puka Nacua in the slot. You have Cooper Kupp who also excels in the slot. So you're doubling down on two of a great thing, which, worked, but it had its limitations. But then you swap out Cooper Kupp, who coincidentally has fallen off at the exact same time. And then you put in Devontae Adams, who is like the number one X receiver Oh my God, it's such a perfect pairing, and it's just evolved both of them to where Devontae Adams is this like demon red zone threat who can get a bunch of who can get touchdowns and like deep plays, and Puka Nacua is just that consistent go to guy. It fits so perfectly. Um, that Rams offensive line, which has always been kind of an issue for them, like it's always been mediocre to a bit below average, seemed to hold up really well this year. And of course, when you talk about the Rams, that front four, oh my God, they're like making Emmanuel Forbes the number one corner look competent or even good because of how good that front four is. They just extended Nate Landman, and that linebacking core is actually like not bad for the first time in a long time with the Rams. For the first time since Ernest Jones was there, that linebacking core is playing well. So that the Rams right now just look so freaking dominant, and I'm really, really excited to see how the season plays out. Because if they end up with the 1 seed, and they end up on a bye, it's going to be hard for anybody to knock them out. Of course, what the big thing with the Rams though is they don't really have much of a home field advantage. So them getting the 1 seed is very much not the same effect that another team would get with the 1 seed. But we'll see how they do. I just want to talk about. I feel like I hadn't talked about the Rams in a while. And I don't want it to make it seem like I'm not talking about the Rams because they're playing well and I'm a Niners fan. I want to give them the love that they deserve because they really do deserve it. It's just that they've been in either very boring games or games where they win, but the headline's the other team. Because right now the Rams are running like a well-oiled freaking machine. And Stafford, by the way, I am more and more every week getting closer to thinking that back injury thing was a fluke. Or it was a lie, a scam, whatever the hell it was, and he really just wanted to spend training camp at home with his family. There is no logical explanation for how a 37-year-old with a bad back has now gotten better. So, I guess the logical explanation is Puka and Devontae Adams. But besides that one, there's not a great explanation. So, that was the Rams. So good. Bucs free falling. Good news for them is that their biggest competition is the Panthers. I really think we're going to see a mid-off here. I think it's going to be like the Bucs with 9 wins and the Panthers with 9, and they're like in a death match in Week 18. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird time. All right, moving on. I don't have a particular game I want to talk about here, but I want to talk about some young QBs. So we got J.J. McCarthy and Shedeur Sanders. So let's talk about J.J. He is getting a lot of shit. I want to say out of any quarterback this whole season, he is the most scrutinized, him and Geno. Because JJ these last few weeks have been absolutely brutal. And you watch it on broadcast, and it's like, yikes, that's really bad. So I wanted to watch the film. I watched all of JJ's dropbacks. I analyzed all of them. And coming away from it, of course, as film does, you don't come away with just one strong takeaway. You come away with multiple. You get some nuance when you watch film. Because when I first watched it, I'm like, oh my God, JJ McCarthy sucks, and this is never going to work out. But what I'm honestly seeing is just like, it's a failure on every level. Like, has J.J. McCarthy been absolutely terribly bad? Yes. Holy shit, he is so inaccurate for no reason. Something that it felt like he excelled at in Michigan has seemingly gone away. It's so weird to see. All of the poise and all of that shit is just gone. So, and instead we have this like shaky, inaccurate passer who isn't trusting what he sees on the field. It feels like every snap he gets less and less trust in his own self and confidence. It's a mess. And of course, him saying 9, who am I? Oh yeah, 9's coming out, has not helped his case. But truthfully, you go back and watch the Packers film, that offensive line was falling apart on his dropbacks. Micah Parsons, my God, had like a signature dominant Micah game, even if it like only showed up in the stat sheet as 1 sack or whatever. You could feel Micah that whole game. He was bullying Darisaw. He would even come in on the interior, and he pancaked to center. And a lot of times, J.J. McCarthy would be like, okay, wait, this is developing, this is open. And I would see what J.J. was seeing. And then I'd peek back in the backfield, and it's like, oh, he's about to die. That's unfortunate. Not. And of course, the first interception he had where he just got crushed by Rashawn Gary and ended up being picked. And the second one was just, frankly, he just sailed it. It was a long, rough game. So I think for anybody that's saying, like, J.J. McCarthy is never going to succeed in the NFL, I think they're just stupid. They don't understand how quarterbacks develop. And this is a larger conversation I've had. There's a really, really good video recently done by Brett Coleman about how and why it's taking college quarterbacks longer to develop and succeed. But the gist of it is that the college game is so different from the NFL game, and more different, frankly, than it ever has been. So much of the college game is focused on attacking the sides of the field, attacking the hash where it's there's so much more space. So a big part of the game is lateral throws, right? Not lateral as in, lateraling like that, like throwing to your side. Not only that, the RPO game in college is huge. When college's quarterbacks come in and they were used to like having so many gimmies and having so many different focuses, it's such a different game. So JJ McCarthy sitting, technically sitting out his first year because of the injury is good as far as like, his development, but he also just needs a lot of reps. He needs in-game reps, which he frankly just did not have a lot of because this is his fourth game. This is not going to look great. And again, I think the main frustration with JJ McCarthy is not that he's a young quarterback that's struggling. The frustration is that there's so much talent on this Vikings team, and it feels like if they just had someone competent in there, it would be a lot better, which it would be. But I think that's also ignoring a lot of structural issues because that offensive line really isn't great. That running game isn't great. And I think that's something that's really interesting to point out is, again, because of how hard it is to learn quarterback under center in the NFL, they're only running out of shotgun. Like, if you look at all of JJ McCarthy's pass attempts, they're all out of the freaking shotgun, which is so hard to do because it destroys your running game. And yes, it does make things easier for a quarterback, especially a young quarterback who's still learning. But to essentially just sacrifice your entire, inside run game for that is something I really don't understand. Going on to the Shedeur side of it, I watched his dropbacks. And with Shedeur, of course, it's like that was his first ever start. You can clearly tell there was a lot of young rookie mistakes, which is, again, natural. Like there was a few, he had that interception where he just did not read that linebacker at all, felt a little pressure and just like trusted his first read, and it was a brutal interception because if he just tilted his head a little bit to the right, there's something way more wide open. But then you also saw some positives. You really got to see it. The cannon arm let loose. That deep throw to Isaiah Bond was clean, man. Rolling out of the pocket, pressure in his face. He knew he was going to take a hit. He freaking uncorked a bomb to Isaiah Bond, which ended up being, again, against the Raiders. That felt like it just deflated their whole team, and that was kind of it for the game. And that's something I thought JJ McCarthy really struggled with was, knowing, okay, I'm going to take a hit. I got to rip it and just throw the ball. And I think that's because, frankly, his self-confidence does not look like it's there, which is not a problem for Shedeur Sanders at all, watching him. Coming away, JJ McCarthy just needs to regain some self-confidence. Whether that's because of a fake, JJ McCarthy's in the concussion protocol. Like, I saw a few hits where he could have maybe gotten concussed, but the timing seems a little convenient. So whether that's him sitting out, maybe watching some more, but I still think he needs reps. And for both these quarterbacks, like they had so much expectation heading into it. Of course, with JJ, it felt like anyone, we saw with Sam Darnold, I was like, oh, anyone can succeed in the system. We just need JJ to play solid. And I think those people are like, they don't understand. It's hard to be solid in the NFL right away, especially for a young quarterback. Again, the game is so different. So I understand a lot of people want to call it quits on JJ McCarthy right now. And I know how frustrating it is to watch, him struggle with how good this team can be. But I think you kind of sign up for this when you're putting in what is essentially a rookie quarterback. It sucks, but you're gonna have to ride with the punches if you want to see what results could come out of this. And for Shedeur, hey, all of the pressure and expectations he had were put on by himself and Deion Sanders and that whole mess in Colorado. So to see him have what was a really nice game, and to get a win for Cleveland, which frankly doesn't happen all that often, was nice. And it was really nice to see him like just rip it. And hey, if he can build and get some positive momentum, that would be great. Either for him getting a starting job with Cleveland next year, because of how bad that quarterback draft class is, either being in a really good spot to compete for a starting spot next year. I'm going to move on. I want to talk quickly about the Bills. I think that their loss, since it was on Thursday night, is not getting enough attention because that was bad. That was really freaking bad. They got beat by Davis Mills and co. And we know how bad the Texans offense is. And for that defense to, frankly, struggle against that Texans offense, allow them to get over 20 points, because that Texans defense is one of the best in the league. In my opinion, it is the best defense in football. And I've been slamming the table as to how I think the Texans are still a very good team, even when they were like 0-3, even when they were struggling midway through the year. I was like, just give this team a half decent, competent offense. And they got that against Buffalo. And Buffalo's lack of ability to stop the run is killing them. Not only that offense just being Josh Allen or die is so brutal for them right now. Because if Josh Allen has one or two mistakes, the whole offense just seems to fall apart. which is so uncharacteristic of Buffalo. Ever since Joe Brady has gotten there, it has felt like Josh Allen can actually step back and just focus on not turning over the ball, and they can run the ball and can create a consistent offense, and that has all been flushed down the toilet. They are freaking running out there with Gabe Davis, who they picked up off the practice squad as their receiver one. It's a freaking mess in Buffalo. And I think that's not getting enough attention because everyone assumes, like, oh, they have Josh Allen, they'll just turn it around. I don't know if I feel that way in Buffalo. I'm just going to quickly touch on the Houston side of it. I'm actually really happy to see this Houston team be 6-5. It feels so nice to be kind of vindicated on that. And they're 2 games back in the division. So, and they still have to play the Colts twice. So who knows? Maybe they could sneak back in and get the South. I don't think so, but I think that they will be a very dangerous wildcard team with D'Amico Ryans leading a defense with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. Oh, I love it so much. I could rant about the Texans defense all day. I'm just going to give some love real quick before I close here to Jahmyr Gibbs and Myles Garrett, who Myles Garrett had 3 sacks this week, and Jahmyr Gibbs had a 60-point fantasy game. I got put on. It was disgusting work that I had to deal with. I obviously lost by like 50, but Jahmyr Gibbs putting up 60 was absurd to see. Frankly, single-handedly carried his team to beating the Giants, which is a whole thing in itself. I really am excited to see what the Lions do on Thursday because it does not look great over there. But Myles Garrett and Gibbs, these are 2 just insanely freak talented athletes that we need to appreciate every Sunday. Because for Gibbs, man, the speed that he has, explosiveness. I remember when all of the hubbub about when they traded up to get him, it was like, oh, why don't you just get Bijan if you were going to take that pick? And, oh, there's so much crap the Lions got for it. But in hindsight, my God, there's not many other running backs you'd want for the future right now because he is so special in what he can do with the ball. He is awesome. And I love watching Jahmyr Gibbs every game. And for Myles Garrett, he might be the best defensive player since Aaron Donald. He is one of the best pass rushers I've ever seen. Of course, he has the insane physique. He's the reason Shamar Stewart got drafted because he vaguely looked like Myles Garrett. And yeah, I mean, you even kind of could understand why, just because of how good Myles Garrett is. If he gets 2 more sacks for the rest of the year, which is very possible, he could have 30 on the year. Michael Strahan already conceded that his sack record is done because all Myles Garrett needs is 5 sacks to break it because he's already up to 18 sacks on the entire year. He is so good. And it sucks to see him on Cleveland and play games that don't really matter. But if he could be part of a culture shift here, because Cleveland's draft looks really good with Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins. I really love Harold Fannin, one of my favorite picks in the entire draft. Harold Fannin, tight end out of Bowling Green. He is already their leading receptions leader and receiving yards leader. He's awesome. Dylan Sampson, the running back they got, has so much of a burst to him. So if we can lead a new culture change here, that'd be pretty cool in itself. So let's just appreciate these guys because they're so talented. And with that, I'm sorry it's going to wrap up a little sooner than I wanted, but I want to thank all of you guys for listening. It has been a phenomenal podcast. Let's have a beautiful, beautiful football week like I opened with. There's so much football this week. Let's just enjoy it. I'll be back here to react to some of the games pretty soon.